Matthew David, in the past, you've talked about the culture of sharing at ILM. I have, yes. And how this helped in the iteration of builds in the future. Have you continued to foster this sense in your shop? And if so, any tips on how to practice it the most effectively when most of us are solo makers? Look, the culture of sharing at ILM was really abiding. I remember working on a radar dish that I needed 8 of, and it was like a skeletal frame radar dish in the drawings, and I was trying to figure out how to do this in some kind of cost-effective way because I couldn't spend one day. I had like 2 days to complete 8 radar dishes. That's what my supervisor told me. And there was no way I was going to hand build them in this skeletal frame like a radio telescope inside of 2 days if I was doing it individually. I needed an efficiency. So I laser cut the skeletal frame as a flat piece of 16th inch black acrylic. And then I turned a bowl, a shallow bowl, and then I put the laser cut radar dish in the bowl and heated it and used a second piece that matched the curve of the bowl to turn this thing into a potato chip, to give it a compound curve. And I told this story before, but like Lauren Peterson came over and he was like, "Oh, what are you doing there? Oh, that's really neat. You know, on Star Wars, and he always had an amazing story about some problem they solved on Star Wars. Seriously, I could listen to Lauren talk for years. And then he'd be like, "That's really neat." And a few minutes later, someone else would show up. "Lauren told me you were working on this." And everyone would file past your desk. Most of us are solo makers, but we still do a ton of sharing about our work. I'm doing it right now. And for me, my whole thing is about zero gatekeeping, no threshold to entry. So you ask, do you have any tips on how to practice it the most effectively? Share everything. That technique you figured out, it's not what makes you unique. You are what makes you unique. This is a paraphrase of a wonderful Bill Hicks thing where he says, he exhorts comedians to write really personal jokes because it makes it theirs. It also makes it harder to steal. And also you shouldn't worry if someone's stealing your jokes because you have the copyright on being you, and you are not your jokes. You are not your output. You are your output plus all the other things that you're outputting. So if you are tempted when someone asks you how you did something, and maybe you don't like that person, that can happen. And maybe you think, I don't want them to know how to do this. Remind yourself that you should share that information. We are explorers and we are inventors. And one of the most remarkable things that humans have built thus far, in my opinion, is the practice of science. The practice of using information and peer review to understand the universe as best as possible and being willing to change your mind when the data supports new models that didn't match the old models. And that science, that beautiful practice of discovery hinges completely upon open sharing of information. And I'm in accord that there are reasons to not share information with everybody about everything. There are certainly professional things that we don't share about our jobs or our businesses. That's totally fine. But when it comes to this kind of thing of making techniques, unless it's some proprietary thing that your business depends on within a competitive industry, my opinion is you should just be sharing everything. And you will be better when you do that. And that pays dividends back much later on. Really good dividends. You build trust with somebody. They go and try your technique. They call you up and they're like, "Hey, I figured out something new with your technique." Seriously, this is to me how the world should work and how it works when it's working great. Let's see here. The creator Matt asks, did ILM give support for personal projects? Yes, they did. Did they let you use any space or tools after hours to pursue things on your own? Yes, they did. If so, do you think more companies should open their doors for their employees to have more tools at their disposal? Yes. I remember specifically when one of my colleagues was building a battle bot. It was not Mouse or Mecha Cat Bot, meow meow. They were building a battle bot, and they were building it over lunches. And the lunches went long. I mean, because as BattleBots was approaching, this person was like spending, at first it was like an hour and 10 minutes, then became an hour and 15 minutes, then it became an hour and 20 minutes. And like, we saw that was occurring. It's fine. It's no big deal. But when he lost in the first round of BattleBots at that competition, his supervisor was like, I think he owes me some hours, which was a joke. That supervisor wasn't going to give him a hard time for pulling some of those long lunches. Because the structure at Industrial Light and Magic totally understood that the happy employee was the good employee. And I absolutely came early and worked on personal projects. I stayed late. I sometimes stayed until 10 or 11 at night. I've definitely pulled at least one all-nighter in the model shop. And that was always fine. You had to, you cleaned up after yourself. You didn't break the shit, and you communicated with the folks that you were working with that you were doing these things. And I don't even know that it was institutionally like, this is a policy ILM model shop allows. It was more just, it was very casual, but it was really real that you did have these tools at your disposal. And that worked the same when I worked for Jamie Heineman. In fact, it might have been the most important part of working for Jamie, was that he was like, yeah, now that I trust you, you can have a key to this joint and you can come in and work on these tools anytime, because I trust that you can learn how to use them and then you can use them safely. So I will also add that when I have had shop assistants here in the cave, Freddie and Mel and Jen and others, I've been very, very open with all of them that, like, anytime I'm not in this space, it is yours to utilize as you see fit. Use any materials you like. Check with me about X, Y, or Z, but for the most part, just replace what you use. And I'll go one further. ILM would actually have no issues with you doing side jobs using their shop equipment. We called them G jobs for government work, because they were gravy. G jobs also stood for gravy. It was like that sweet, sweet gravy that comes as the, I did a bunch of gravy jobs. I built a giant set of Sennheiser headphones for an 8-foot-tall Buddha for a tech conference, I think. They even had a rate. They had a rate that was half the rate they charged for the laser cutter. If you were working on personal work, you had to pay the model shop for the laser cutter time. Every minute that it was cutting, you paid by the hour. But again, it was half the professional rate, and it was very reasonable. And a lot of us did a ton of side work in ILM while working full-time for ILM. Not on the clock, but after hours and before hours and on weekends. That was great. It was just so much, it was so much fun. And like, not only was this like a ludicrously well-equipped shop with multiple vacuum form machines, the smallest one being 8x10 and the biggest one being 4x4, with laser cutters and CNC machines and milling machines and lathes and all of this. Not only did it have all of that stuff, I forgot where I was going with that. Oh, I had a point I was making, and I started to think, oh, right, not only was all this stuff, but every now and then you'd pick up a tool, and like Lauren Peterson would show up and go, I bought that on Star Wars. You'd be like, really? And he's like, yeah, this is without a doubt the best heat gun I've ever found. It's German, and it's got this little scoop out at the end that allows you to draw heat. In fact, I was bending the teeth of the asteroid monster from Empire using this in this photo, and you're just like, oh, you can't believe you are talking to these folks, working with them, and hearing these incredible stories. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support us even further, you can by becoming a tested member. Details are, of course, below, but it includes all sorts of perks, and we're building them all the time. You get advanced word and behind-the-scenes photos of some of our projects. Questions, you get to ask direct questions during my live streams, and we have some members-only videos, including the Adam real-time series of unbroken, unedited shots of me working here in the shop. They are weirdly meditative. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you on the next one.